Now then, you're very welcome back. We're going to turn to Croke Park at the weekend. Soul searching for the Kerry men this year, but Kerry are the ladies All-Ireland Senior Football Champions 2024 after 2 final defeats in a row. They have got over the line. They beat Galway and did so really well in the end by 12 points. In fact, 3-14 to 11 points was the final score. Very happy to say Ciara Trant, an All-Ireland winner with Dublin, is with us. I know you were at the game as well with Tommy Forrest. Ciara, good to talk to you.
You too, good to see you.
So it's Kerry's 12th title overall, and it's their first in 30 years, which is kind of hard to believe. It bridges the gap to 1993. They got in the driving seat early and kept the foot down, and in terms of any doubt about the winner, there wasn't much for most of this game. That kind of a performance, really.
Yeah, I was having to think back over it really today, and I was wondering, were there any points in the game where I thought, okay, Galway are starting to kick into gear here, and they didn't really. Like, they had a goal chance early on through Louise Ward, and they didn't convert that, and I think that was huge to them, because Kerry just kept the scoreboard ticking. Like, the longest Kerry went without scoring was 6 minutes in the whole game, so they kept chipping away at Galway, whereas Galway, I think at one stage went 15 minutes, maybe 12, 15 minutes without scoring. And that's, a quarter of the game. Not to be putting the ball over the bar or creating chances like that is huge. So, yeah, Kerry dominated, and it never kind of really seemed that Galway were going to claw it back, really.
No, Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh, 16 years, by the way, since her debut. I mean, it was kind of an amazing moment when she got her standing ovation coming off, but she scored 5 unanswered points in the first half at one stage. And just generally, Kerry's attack looked slick. There was a pace to it. There was, the kicking game was more than happy for Galway not to have sweepers. Your choice, Galway. We're not going to say no. Whereas Galway, by comparison, more of a running game, just had a kind of more of a static feel. So those scores were very hard to come by.
Yeah, Kerry played the exact game we expected them to play, and I kind of felt Galway did nothing to stop them. Like, Kerry played 3 full forwards and Galway played 3 full backs in them. And they didn't decide to drop a sweeper, even at half time when they were so far behind and Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh was dominated. They still didn't drop somebody back. They gave Kerry an acre of space to kick long, direct football into and left 1v1 situations. And the talent Kerry have up front, you really can't leave it 3-on-3. Especially with the quality of the ball going in. And Galway never changed or never deviated from that in the entire match. And when you're getting a hammering, something has to change.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a plan B. Like, at halftime, they swapped Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh onto Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh, but it wasn't enough. Like, I know everything Louise kind of touched yesterday or on Sunday turned to goal, but Galway kind of allowed Kerry play, and I think they lost the tactical battle. Definitely, they'd no answers. Whereas Kerry on the other side, they allowed Galway to run the ball through midfield, but as soon as Galway got anywhere near the scoring zone, their running game, their athleticism counted for nothing. They couldn't convert from the back of it. So, like, both teams played exactly how we expected them to, but Kerry kind of stopped Galway, and Galway did nothing to stop Kerry.
You sound more than a touch puzzled at Galway not changing things. Fair enough, you want to risk 3v3 in your own half to start with, that's fine, and maybe your players come out on top and the tactic works beautifully and you're on the front foot. But if it's not working, to not change it, that kind of seems like bizarre, really. Like, hard to explain. Is there a good explanation as to why they want to change it?
I don't know. Like, there's an element of believing in your system and trusting in your players, and they obviously backed their full back line to win that battle in the 3-on-3, but it just wasn't happening. And they weren't even stopping the ball going in. Like, they weren't stopping the attack at source either. So nothing was happening. And we know that the Galway liked to clog the middle third. Kerry liked to kick long balls in. So it was in Kerry's armoury to, bypass that middle third and go direct. And Galway just kept allowing them to do it. And I remember turning to Tommy, 5 minutes into the second half and saying, Galway haven't made any changes. What are they doing? And that would be, I think, they're probably their biggest disappointment, that they lost that tactical battle, and particularly their management should be a little bit disappointed that they were so plan A only, and they couldn't really deviate or even just tweak a few things. You can still play your running game, you can still keep to your system and just tweak it a little bit here and there, but they didn't. They kept trusting the process, but the process wasn't working.
You mentioned Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh, so she scored 6 points for them from frees. She's been on the go a long time. This is 16 years since her debut, and that's 16 years without winning All Ireland. So I think I got the impression, reading different bits and pieces, that the GAA fraternity at large was very, very happy to see Louise get a medal, long overdue and deserved.
Oh, absolutely! Like I shed a few tears watching her come off the pitch, and the smile on her face, knowing that there's still a couple of minutes left in the game. But
you've just been cut from the Dublin GAA scene, by the way.
I don't know. I'd like to think everyone in Ireland shares this love of Louise now. No, she's a fantastic player, but not only to think that in 16 years she hasn't got an All Ireland. She's playing for Kerry, and she hasn't got. She's won now, but she hadn't got an All Ireland. Like, there's plenty around the country that have dedicated the majority of their life the same way as Louise has, and they're not even expected to get one. But she hasn't even been competing in finals bar the last 3. So it's a massive drought for her. And probably from a Kerry perspective, seeing Cork dominate for 11, 12 years, final after final every single year, and you've the talent like Louise, a couple of others that have been struggling through the bad days. But I don't think anyone can begrudge somebody that has dedicated so much and has such talent to finally getting one in the bag. And I did hear one of her interviews after the game where she said if it wasn't for the management team, she would have stepped away.
Okay.
So there'll be an element of relief from Louise that she made that right decision. She stuck with it, because it's easy to lose a football match.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, if you take the last, the Cork dominance stretches really right back to kind of mid-2000s. So the Kerry joint managers, and even that's interesting, we should tease that out for a moment. Joint management generally has a bad name, but Declan Quill and Darragh Long came on board in 2019. And then there's like COVID, and that's not an enjoyable period for anybody. But they've obviously done an extraordinary job to get Kerry into 2 All-Ireland finals the last 2 years, and now a third, and to win this third. The context would have been Cork win 10 and 11 years, and that's just an outrageous period of dominance. And then the Dubs come along and do the 4 in a row, 17 to 20, and then Meath have their 2 years, including beating Kerry in one of those finals. And then Dublin beat Kerry last year, and now Kerry have finally beaten Galway. So did you, looking on, I'm sure, did you detect just an immediate impact made by Declan Quill and Darragh Long? Or maybe it was hard to see through COVID because it was such a strange time. But talk to us about the job those guys have done over the last 5 years.
Yeah, I suppose COVID did have a role to play in it, and I think a lot of people write that season off to a certain extent because of it was just so unique in how it was formatted, and the Christmas final and stuff like that. But then you go to, even take away this year, they've led their team to 2 finals in a row. And the dynamic of that joint management team and then their extended management team behind them, they obviously have a very good relationship just with themselves. They're obviously able to work together, to plan together, to delegate jobs, to ask each other the tough questions, to motivate each other. And both of them have young families as well, so there's a lot going on in their lives, but they obviously have this massive friendship that probably oozes and radiates through the whole team. And I know from playing against them, like, most of the drama happens on the sideline with the 2 lads, because they're so passionate. Like, as soon as the ball thrown in, like, they could be pulling muscles. I think Tommy might have spotted somebody pull a muscle over the weekend, celebrating on the sideline after when the final whistle blew. But they're just so passionate, but they're really down to earth, sound lads. And to be able to bring their skills, and like, obviously they've 3 All-Ireland finals in a row, highly rated as a management team, to do together, but also to blend that with their passion And then, you think of Kerry people and Kerry football as this honest, open, free-flowing footballing county. And they have that. That's what they kind of instill in their players. And it definitely radiates down through the team. At halftime, when the ref or when the hooter sounded, as the Kerry girls were jogging off the field, they were running onto the field, high-fiving them, patting them on the back, saying, well done, well done. They were, praising the players, giving their players energy, cementing the good job that they did in the first half. And then they grouped together with the rest of our management panel and brought themselves down off that, emotional high of the game in full flow and the franticness of everything that goes with it on the sideline. And then they went back inside. So just seeing that spell of maybe a minute of how they interacted with their players coming off the pitch, it just showed me how close-knit they are and how much they care about the players and the influence that they have on them. Whereas the Galway management team went straight in and the Galway players followed them in. Now, that's not to say that they don't have great relationships and that it's not a cohesive group, but just Kerry had that extra spark, and it came from the two lads. It came from their management team. So it is unique, and it's not to say that every management team, if it, joint managers is the way to go. But when you have a duo like them and they work so well, two is better than one.
It's interesting because I think generally the received wisdom would be that joint management just leads to complications and problems. And to a bygone era, Roy Evans and Gerard Hooley at Liverpool was almost held up as the totemic example of just how messy it gets. Although, to be fair, Tyrone men's football team with Dooher and Fergal Lohan, again, as you said, when the dynamics are good and there's a genuine rapport and friendship and no one's trying to do anything underhand to the other. And I guess they have to see things the same way. I mean, it's tough if players come into them saying X and one of them saying, look, I agree with you, but your man over there sort of thinks the opposite. So I don't know, like, what do you think? That kind of stuff can be like toxic, but clearly when you've got good people working together, it can be very powerful. And maybe it does lessen the demands with young families. It's funny, I like as a casual observer of sport over the last couple of days and the last week, there is so much on at the moment. The Olympics, obviously the headline act. I felt this final got lost a little bit in mainstream media in comparison with other years, and we probably saw that with the attendances as well, or the attendance as well. Ciara, has it been a successful championship generally in terms of the extent to which you felt it's part of the sporting landscape and sporting conversation?
Footballing wise, I think it has been a successful championship. As soon as the Dubs were out, it was blown wide open, and we had this semi-finals on our hands where nobody could call it, and there's massive entertainment with that. And I was down in Tullamore, and the crowd there on the day was quite poor. So even before we got to the final, the interest wasn't really there. You can factor in the expenses of travelling as well, and with getting to the final, you have the Galway men were out the week before, that sort of thing. But even online on my social media feeds, it wasn't like popping up and popping up and popping up. There was bits in the newspapers on Friday, on Saturday, but with the Olympics, we're getting full pages.
Yeah.
Ladies football, we're getting a column or a big picture and a tiny column. So I think it was fairly diluted, but I think last year was the same as well. I was in Pro Park last year, and when I arrived and the crowd was building up, I kind of thought, where is everybody? And I didn't really have high hopes that this year was going to change, which is a little bit disappointing because the LGFA celebrated their 50 years this year, so you kind of wanted a big spectacle. But I think a lot of people missed out as well. And I think that needs to be emphasised too. The quality of the junior game, the intermediate game, like I was dreading watching them because usually the standards isn't great, but they were terrific matches. Right. Really, really, really good matches. Standard of football, and the entertainment was all there. They were brilliant. And then everyone's going to tune into the senior final. And I've met a couple of people that either went in or, watched it online or watched it on television. So the interest was there, but people just didn't feel that it was worth going into Croke Park for. Like, you know, you do have the Olympics on, other things on. People don't want to dedicate a day to it. And that's a shame. I don't know what the fix is. You look at men's football this year, like go back a couple of years, the Dubs were selling out Croke Park every single National League match. They can't sell out Croke Park anymore. In general, you know, I don't think Croke Park was really a sellout for the championship semi-finals either. It's easy to get tickets. So I don't think it's a ladies football problem, really. I think it's a Gaelic football problem. I think the interest for the sport isn't really there anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? For people who missed it, by the way, junior decider, Fermanagh beat Louth by 2 points, and in the intermediate Leitrim withstood a fight back from Tyrone in those 2 earlier games, and it's a pity they were the more live contest, I suppose, than the senior final. That is true. Now that, you know, it's not a ladies' issue. It has been a factor in the men's GAA this summer, and even in the earlier rounds of the provincial and those group games. People are definitely picking and choosing. I guess cost is a reason for sure. On the men's side of it, certainly a lot of games which aren't vital. You know, you lose, you're still out next week, so it's easier to pick and choose. Generally, the ladies did very well with the one-off crowds, though, didn't they? They were like mid-40,000s. Maybe Dublin helps with that. You get all the school kids in the area, and that bums things up. I guess that's not as available to Kerry or Galway, to be fair.
Yeah, and someone made a point to me, is there any way that, you know, the LGFA could incentivise trains and public transport and buses for getting bigger crowds up to the final? But it shouldn't get to that stage, really. You know, every club has to buy tickets, and the tickets are extremely affordable, like €30. You're getting 3 All-Ireland finals for, you know, a tenner a match if you attend all 3. And then you look at the price of the tickets for the men's final as well. So it's not that it's really, really expensive. And that's for an adult ticket. For juvenile tickets, it's lower. And then there's deals for if you're bringing a group of kids into it. So it's not a massive cost compared to the lads' games, but every club has to buy tickets. Tickets are available there. You know, you can get them, you can buy them online straight away. Clubs should be bringing teams up, you know, groups of girls up to watch the match for their own club. It will help the club grow. It would help a team grow. Like, the drop-off of girls from sport is huge around the teenage years. You put a group of teenagers on a bus and bring them to McDonald's after the match, and they'll have an absolutely fantastic day. Whether they pay much attention to the match or not, they have this great day out with the team, and they're going to come training, and they're going to stick together for another little while. And it's about feeding that. So I think more can be done at club level. And even like for league matches and other championship matches, like, you can get onto the pitch afterwards and play football with the girls. There's a lot of girls that, you know, have a bit of a kick around with the kids and stuff like that after the match. You can get your jersey signed. Like, it's not strict in the slightest, and your access to players is huge if you bring a group of girls, or, you know, your children or your niece or nephew or whoever to the match. Like, it's really easy to do, and you get a lot back compared to maybe the men's game, where that access to players probably isn't as good. So there's loads of rewards in it. So I don't think it's a massive LGFA problem. I think the media can do more maybe to promote it, but you do have the time that's given to the Olympics at the moment, and then you had the Euros before it, and then the hurling and the football, you know, and the week in between. When do you stop talking about the men's final and start talking about the ladies' final? That kind of balance as well. So there's no easy solution to it either, but it is disappointing.
Yeah, no, there really isn't. I mean, we've said to ourselves, you know, on the show the last couple of months, which would have been obviously in the teeth of the ladies' season as well, you sprinkle in even the Irish men's rugby test in South Africa, and, like, honestly, we were sitting here most weeks saying we don't have time to cover everything. I mean, it's just insane. There probably hasn't been a summer quite like it, I guess, with every, you know, the calendar moving towards the end of the Premier League soccer season and the rugby seasons, and so it's so intense around May and June and April. I didn't catch you on Friday, though. Arthur outside just mentioned that you had mentioned the Lidl campaign and you weren't a fan of it. I'm sorry, Ciara, I honestly, I punched the air when I heard you say that. I have never. Look, with respect to Lidl, you can't fault their contribution to the game.
Yeah.
You love what they've done. It is the wrong message to send, that campaign. You cannot guilt people into watching something. In fact, it just gives totally the wrong air of obligation around something that's supposed to be enjoyed. And I think you said, obviously, the players, how would they love being talked about like that? Like, listen, if you want to be a good person, you have to watch this terrible, terrible football. It's punishment, but listen, we all have to do it. I know that's not what they're going for, but God, it doesn't half feel that way.
No, it didn't really sell it. Like, if you're trying to promote the game, tell people that others don't find it entertaining. You know, it's, I don't know. And then Aisling made a good point that you don't see the lads doing advertising or promotion or anything like that with, fake muck on their face or stuff like that. And girls have to do that all the time and that sort of thing. And the TV ad about, breaking the glass or shattering the ceiling or whatever it is, like, it's very scripted. Whereas if you get some clips of the game and show off like really good passages of play, people are going to think, oh yeah, that's good. I'll watch that. Might go to that. God, she's a great footballer. That sort of thing, rather than something that's just a bit cheesy and is going to have the opposite effect. And I think it's probably not just the players that feel that the ad is, well, I feel it's embarrassing as a former intercounty player. Well, I think women in sport in general are probably thinking, that's not helping us either. If ladies football is, the biggest female sport in the country, and you have obviously the Irish international team as well, if that's how we're promoting it, what is it going to do for other female sports?
I think you're right on the point about showing good passages of play, for instance, because it sort of portrays it a little bit as, look, obviously we know you like the men's stuff more. That's your dessert, but you sort of have to eat your vegetables too. And, you should just watch this because you're duty bound almost to watch it. And that's what being a good person is, that you'll support this stuff, which, just isn't as good. And like, nobody, when Katie Taylor tickets go on sale, is pushing that message. It's like, this Katie Taylor, she's unbelievable. Do you want to be here or not? It turns out everybody does. Kelly Harrington's going to stop the nation very shortly. So I agree with you. It's almost kind of the underlying message is, this isn't that good, but you should watch it to be a real fan or a full fan. And look, it's not. To be fair, it's a one season ad campaign, and they'll have something else next year, and it's probably hard to come up with new things. But I wasn't shocked to hear you say that on Friday. Put it that way.
TG Car have some really, really good promotional videos for the games. You just go online, look them up. They're really, really good, and it's full of clips and passages of play, and there's music behind it and talking over it, and it's really, really authentic, and it's just focused on the football. They do that really well. And there's a couple of LGFA videos that are used to promote the games that they put out, and Jerome Quinn does a couple as well. So, like, those clips are there and they are being done, but then you have Lidl, who have the finance behind it and who can promote it on all our national television stations and radio stations and ads that pop up online. They have, financially they can do that, and it's having the opposite effect. And then you have really, really good ads that the general public aren't seeing because maybe they don't follow, TG Car Sport on their social medias or follow ladies football on social medias. So they miss out on the good content that is there and that can be used. But I think the marketing team at Lidl probably need to kind of change things up a little bit.
We won't labour the point. Before you go, Kerry have beaten Galway. Year before that they were beaten in All-Ireland finals, and then we had Dublin's 4 years and Cork's dominance. What's the prognosis then for this Kerry team over the next couple of years? Is this a side which has another couple of All-Irelands in them? Is it all very even and hard to predict? Do you see Dublin coming back in a big way? What's your sense of things? I know there's obviously huge turnover of players as well in ladies football, so it can be that bit more unpredictable. What's your sense of the landscape, Ciara?
Kerry have quite an older team in general, but I think they have the depth in their panel to, fill the boots a little bit? Will Louise Ní Mhuircheartaigh stay on? Will Lorraine Scanlon stay on? You know, a couple of seasoned players. They could, and whether they're getting game time or not as regular as they have been in the past, they still have a massive influence over the team. So I think from a Kerry's perspective, they need to hold on to as many people as they can and bring through the younger blood and, you know, train them up and bring them up to scratch. That's what Mick Bowen did with us, and it proved massively successful.
Yeah.
But Kerry have got such a strong panel overall. Like the depth in their panel is there. So losing 3 or 4 players isn't going to put a massive dent in them. And having an All-Ireland medal in the back pocket will do huge for their confidence. I can see them kicking into the league next year and you know, win after win after win. Generally, that kind of is what happens after you win an All-Ireland in ladies football. You start the next year pretty well. Galway, on the other hand, have quite a young side, and even their more experienced players are quite younger than say the Kerry one. So I'd expect Galway to you know have come back quite strong next year. But you know, you have Armagh there as well that have you know got it to an All Ireland semi final, which nobody would have expected them to this year. Cork are coming strong again slowly, but they could get there. Then you have the Dubs who didn't perform on one day against Galway, despite getting a second opportunity in extra time. So you still have them there. They're quite a young side as well. So the championship for next year is quite open, but you'd like to think that Kerry would be a bit more mature and seasoned with the last 3 All-Ireland finals and finally getting one now. And just the strength in their panel, you'd probably have them as the early favourites for the season. But like you said, the turnover of players in ladies football is generally huge, and maybe it's not the starting 15, but you know, you could have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 players from, you know, your finishing 15 that leave at the end of the year, and that's huge when it comes to the quality in training week in, week out. So sure, you can't really call ladies football compared to maybe men's, but I think Kerry should cling on to most of their players next year. Like, why wouldn't you? You're going in as defending champions. It's exciting.
Yes, for sure. Listen, thank you so much for the time. Greatly appreciated. Ciara Trant, All-Ireland winning goalkeeper with Dublin as well, of course. Thanks, Ciara. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.